What's up, guys? Let's talk. Bow, 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 bow. The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. So, if you're new to this channel, or if you didn't catch that book haul I dropped, this is a new section to the channel called Let's Talk. It is not a spoiler-free review of the book. So, if you don't want to hear any spoilers or anything like that, this is definitely your chance to bail. But before you go, for the slow and the struggling, I do want to say, for the struggling reader, The Blade Itself is not exactly a good place to start. Though I do believe it's a good place to challenge yourself. So if you've gotten to that spot where you think you can tackle something more than a straightforward narrative, this is definitely a good thing to pick up for that, if you're there. For the slow reader, as long as you're into that like low fantasy, gritty, bloody tale, this is beyond worth your time. Just know you're going to be invested in 3 books. You can't really pick one up and put it down and walk away. This is just one story split into 3 books. All right, now that we're done with the formalities, let's talk. All right, guys, I have a lot to unpack in this video. A lot of it's probably going to be all over the place and surely riddled with cursing. So please hang in there with me, all right? So, okay. Maybe at first I want to talk about setting the stage and just letting you know where I was at when I first read this book, because I read it years ago. I used to be a strictly Star Wars reader, guys, like only Star Wars books pretty much after the Vampire Chronicles. I transitioned into fantasy basically via grimdark. Grimdark is what got my attention and really pulled me into becoming a fantasy reader. So my little black heart has a huge place in it for the grimdark subgenre. Let's just say that. Okay, moving forward. At this point, when I had The Blade Itself, I had read a couple grimdark books, and they had certainly set a standard for grimdark in my mind. So now you gotta understand, I'm holding The Blade Itself in my hands, and I had been researching books for a minute now, and the one that's on top of the pile here is The Blade Itself, or the First Law trilogy. This book, this series, trilogy, is just the most highly praised, the most well-loved, the most shouted about, and it's just the most consistent at being number 1 on the dark fantasy / grimdark list. It was back then, it still is today. These lists do change, but not when it comes to that number 1 spot. That number 1 spot is The Blade Itself, the First Law trilogy, and it's been this way for years, guys. That's a lot of hype. That's a lot of, reputation to live up to. And so certainly that was something that I was looking at. Man, this one's number 1. This one's rated above the one I love. Like, shit, this has got to be the most dark, crazy stuff I'll ever read. Gotta get into it. And so I do. Right out the gate, I gotta give, some applause to Joe Abercrombie, because he did a couple things right out the gate in page 1, basically. The first one being he gave depth and, dimension to a style of character that really was always known to lack it. The barbarian is always been known to be a bloody savage, and not much more than that. Now, you can argue the Conan thing and a couple others. I'm really just talking about from my own perspective. This was the first time I saw a bloody savage fleshed out to be something more than meets the eye. Now, the second thing that really got me was just how Joe Abercrombie started the story. Because when we start, Nine Fingers is in deep shit, man. Logan Nine Fingers he's like hanging on by a thread. He's being chased by Shanka. It's all bad news. And I mean, it's like he's in the worst possible situation he could, maybe even in throughout the whole book. This is just page 1. And it really made me go like, dude, who puts their main character, who you can argue he's the main character, who does this to them right out the gate? Well, you know who? Joe Abercrombie. That's who. But from here, the story really begins to splinter quite a bit, and it can catch you off guard, because I know it did me. Like I said earlier, you could argue that Logan Nine Fingers is the main character, but realistically, we have like several main characters, and we're going to get torn away from one to go and hang out with the other one. And it's kind of jarring. It's just like, hey, we're doing it. Yeah, I'm finally into the story. And then whoop, now we're off onto something else. And as soon as you begin to get engaged with that, guess what? Whoop, off to another one. It just wasn't exactly what I was ready for. But hey, it's a character-driven story, right? The Blade itself will definitely not let us see it any other way. At least that's my opinion. But moving on, let's talk about characters. So, we spoke about Logan Ninefingers, but I want to talk about another character in this book that has quite the reputation in the book, and quite a reputation outside of the book. Almost everybody that reads this book seems to come out with their favorite character being none other than Sandan Glokta, the crippled torturer. Yeah, this guy, lots of fun. But like I said, his reputation spills outside of the book. So before I had read this, you got to understand, remember, I'm picturing it, number one Grimdark, and then everyone just spewing about this guy, this Sandan Glokta guy that just is this awesome character. He's a torturer. He's in this Grimdark novel. So you got to understand, I had already formed like what this guy looked like, how he acted. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying I did it. So I already had an idea about Glokta. And now when I read the book, my idea and what was on the page was two very, very different things. And you got to understand, when I said, when I started to read this, I was like, ooh, this crippled torturer guy in a Grimdark novel? We're going to get some sick shit. Twisted shit. Stuff that probably going to give me nightmares. But I didn't. Nah, I didn't really get that. There is plenty of torture in this book. I just didn't think it is that graphic or that like gut-wrenching. Yeah, I don't. But what I was really, so that was kind of like, it caught me off guard. It surprised me that it wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be. And another thing that kind of caught me off guard was where I was expecting all this pain from the people getting tortured. What I really got was all the pain from the torturer himself, right? Because Sandan Glokta, he was a prisoner of war. He was tortured in the Gurkish War. And now he works for the Inquisition, and he's a torturer himself. Ooh, the irony. But like I said, we'll spend so much time with his pain. He's got that crippled leg, and he's got the battles with the stairs. Ooh, the stairs. You know, he's got a shit ton of fucked up teeth or missing teeth, you know, and he's got all this tooth pain, and he can describe it spot on. It's amazing. There's a part in this book where he wakes up and he's all crippled in his bed and he screams for his practical frost, and he's just like, put me in my tub. It is great. It's great. This like pain of Glotka's is brilliantly written, so well done, and it's just very engaging. But like I said, it was unexpected. It caught me off guard, maybe in not the best way. Probably one of the biggest surprises to me, and maybe to others, is just who my favorite character was, and that is Jezal Dan Luther, my man. So, yeah, some of you might be surprised. So, if you don't know who the character is, I mean, he is who you normally want to hate. He is arrogant. He is entitled. He can be pompous. He's an asshole. He's all that stuff rolled into one. But for me personally, this was the most realistic character I have ever read. Probably just period. Yeah, so well done. He also, though, is one of the few characters that gets any resemblance of an arc. So for me, it was almost even easier to enjoy him just because we're actually doing something with him during this story. I think one of the main reasons why I love Jezal's character so much is just straight up his like super stubborn defiance. He just doesn't care who you are. He's kind of got a fuck you for everybody. Seriously, he's not just thumbing his nose at the poor and the lowly. It doesn't matter if you're above him, at the same station, or below. Either way, he's just sitting there going, fuck you. I mean, if he gets orders from somebody above him, even if he follows them, he's going to find every other which way to rebel while doing it. And I can just respect that. And then we have Bayaz, and Bayaz is definitely our wizard of the group. He is mysterious and whatnot. He does remind me a bit of Gandalf, and I know that Joe Abercrombie was really taking like those classical fantasy tropes and flipping them on their heads in this book. But Bayaz definitely does come off as a Gandalf, but he also comes off as, he's really fucking grumpy. Yeah, really fucking grumpy. Almost so grumpy that it just carries out into the reader, and I'm like, dude, I don't even want to be around you right now, Bayaz. Fuck off. It's not that he's a shitty character. He's well done. Like, honestly, all the characters in the story are very fleshed out. I feel like you have tiers of characters, but even like the mid-tier characters are fleshed out probably more than some people's top-tier characters. Now, I kind of do consider Bayaz a like mid-tier character. He's like maybe in between top-tier, mid-tier. I don't know. Like I said, not a shitty character. I just wasn't really as interested in him. This is, once again, remember, we're only in book 1 right now. We've got Pharaoh Malgin, who is super pissed off. Much like how Bayaz is our grumpy guy, Pharaoh is our super pissed off chick. And I can understand it. She's an ex-slave, she's been fucked with, her whole life is just basically sucked ass. So yeah, she's pretty pent up, right? Problem being is that shit really hits the reader in the face. At least I know it did me. Almost every single time I read a little chunk of Pharaoh's dialogue, I basically got anxiety. It was just like, oh, fuck you, Pink. And yeah, very aggressive. Wasn't so sure if I liked it. All right, moving on, we got Column West. Yep, Column West, or Major West. And he is basically our shining knight. He's our great example amongst all the assholes. Except for the problem being that Joe Abercrombie hasn't beat the shit out of his sister. So, now one could argue that he's brought himself down amongst the dirtbags and the savages. Some people could argue, though, too, that he feels a lot of shame and guilt over that, just like a normal, like, caring person would, so that he still remains our good guy. Don't know how you look at it. I don't know if I even really cared, because I don't know if I cared that much about West's character. Once again, a lot of the secondary characters for me, man, kind of fell at the wayside. I'm not saying they're shitty. I'm just saying, man, these, like, the top guys were so fleshed out and amazing for me that here's an example. Let's just say this. Look, these guys that weren't doing anything, moving the story forward or nothing, I mean, they're just basically sitting there, we're just learning about, those were the most entertaining people. Then you got people doing shit, and I just want to get back to the nothing. So, does that make sense? I don't know, fucking hope so, because someone's probably already pissed off at me that I'm talking shit about First Law characters. Then we have Nine Fingers' crew, like the Dogman, Black Dow, Three Trees, Toll Thunderhead, Grim Harding, and a couple others. And basically, they think that Logan's dead, so they're just trying to carry on. And then they run, they discover the threat of the Shanka. And don't get me started, because what the fuck is a Shanka? I do not believe I got a very good description of what the fuck this thing is or what they are. I know people tell me they're like orcs, but I didn't feel like I understood it at all from the book. Now, very well, I could have just missed something, or I might not be able to remember. I did read this book a long time ago. So, Shanka. Anyway, so now they're carrying the threat. They're like, hey man, hey Bethid, and all you barbarians up in the north, shit's about to get crazy. But Bethid doesn't give a fuck. He don't care because he's ready to go to war with the Union. So, now this is actually quite a bit of the story, like moving forward in some direction. And once again, I didn't care as much as I probably should have. Once again, kind of trying to get back to those characters that weren't doing nothing. We also got the characters of Malachus Kwai, who is the apprentice of Bayaz, and he definitely feels like a weak character for this world. Like, it's going to chew him up and spit him out. One would almost worry about Malachus Kwai if one cared. I know that's mean. But once again, he's just another character that kind of falls beneath the ones that are so bright and shiny. And I guess also, like, we should talk about. Is it Longfoot? It's either Longfoot or Lightfoot. He's like the navigator, and he's also the only person, it seems, in this entire world that has like a positive, like bubbly personality, which kind of makes him almost come off as annoying. I think just because he's just like this bright shining light amongst all these dull bulbs. So he's a weird one to kind of figure if you like him or if you hate him. I don't know where I stand yet. But yeah, as far as the plot, like the story, I feel like we just don't really get much of one. And really, like I said, like the story that we do get is really with like the minor characters, and it's almost like you just don't care about it that much. This is so much setup, and it can almost kind of irk you. I mean, at the end of the book, I know I was just kind of going, what? What the? It caught me off guard. Of course, it is a bit of a cliffhanger and everything, but like I said, it just was like, when the story finally gets going, it's the end, and it's maybe a little disappointing. I was extremely surprised with how much time we spent basically revolving around this like fencing tournament that Jezal is going to take place in. It just seemed like there was so many different people like invested in this tournament, and certainly the gigantic chunk of this book is just about this tournament. I have to say, though, like, it can get real easy to get hung up on all this plot stuff with book one, right? I mean, just because there's not that much story. I mean, it could be easy to see people start to complain. I know I was. But now I understand the story as a whole a lot better than I understood it then, you know? This story is just not three stories in one. It's one story in three, and I really failed to grasp like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, of course, like the first two books are going to end on like kind of abrupt cliffhanger notes. Like they're not self-contained stories. They're not meant to finish and walk away from. This is one big old book. Another thing that kind of got me though, like this being that rated #1 grimdark book, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say is none of these lists nor like really specify that it's the First Law trilogy that they're talking about is rated as #1. They just kind of list the Blade itself. So it's kind of like saying, hey, this one book is the #1 grimdark book. And the book just isn't that dark. It's just not, guys. I'm sorry. I know that there are fucking people out there going, what is wrong with this guy? What is he, a psycho? Well, probably. But yes, I mean, the book just wasn't that dark, but that's okay, because now, once again, I know what I did not know then, and that this is just one big story, right? So yes, maybe the beginning of the story was not as dark as I wanted it to be, but I guarantee you, if you continue down that path, it will get dark and disturbing, and lots of fun. I just finished book 2, and man, I am all thumbs up, because I just feel like this story has really gotten into that tone that is deserving of a #1 spot. I guess I want to add that I'm not a big fan that you should have to read a book in a series before it gets better. I'm not saying that The Blade itself is a bad book. I didn't hate it, but I didn't give it the best of like, you know, praise either. But here's the thing. Book 1, all that setup, and if one of your issues is just that the story doesn't get pushed forward enough, trust me, all of that setup pays off in book 2. You know what I mean? You're no longer staying stagnant. You're moving quite a bit. All the characters have lots to do, and you're going to be on your toes. You will stay busy. Now, I do have to kind of laugh at myself as well, because, I mean, I basically just threw a pissy fit, you know, at the end of this book. Like, it's not dark enough. But, you know, now I've seen the whole scope so much more clear. You know what I mean? I should have just picked up book 2, because it would have all clicked, you know? And like I said earlier, if you're in that similar situation that I was, continue the tale. You know what I mean? Like, book 1 is just not a really great representation of the story as a whole. It's more just a really good representation of the characters. This isn't about book 1, 2, or 3. It's about all of them together, you know? That was definitely something that I failed to kind of recognize, you know? And it sucked because it's what prolonged, like, continuing the story. Years ago, I read The Blade Itself, and I'm just now, boom, finished before they are hanged, you know? And unfortunately, personally, for me, a lot of it had to do with that tone. I just didn't feel like it was that grimdark. For being a #1 rated grimdark book, it seemed to fall short. But that's all right. I was a blind man, but now I see. Moving on to book 3. Fucking rhyming. Anyway, guys. Oh, shit. So, thank you for spending some time here at the channel. If you made it all the way through this video, oh, bless your black heart, because I'm sure it was tough. Anyway, I know I had a lot of cursing, and I know it was all over the place. This is just me trying to hammer out this new section of videos to the channel. Thanks for spending some time, guys. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the support. Bless ya. Later, guys. Peace.